the mug, the map, and the magic dust. James Weatherby was, by most accounts, a harmless sort of disaster. A stoner, a layabout, a man whose greatest ambition was to build a joint long enough to last an hour. His designs usually made it to 35 minutes before surrendering to physics. He wasn't a bad lad, just a bit frayed around the edges. Life had frayed him early. His mum had vanished when he was 5, leaving behind only a note that said, "Back soon," which was optimistic at best. He was raised instead by his gran, Maud, a tiny, fierce woman who smelled of lavender and victory mints, and who loved him with the kind of stubborn devotion that could outlive a nuclear winter, and he loved her back. When she fell ill, James cared for her every day, every night, through the pain, the confusion, the slow fading. When she finally passed, James drifted. Weed was easier than grief. Weed didn't ask questions. Weed didn't leave. One windy Thursday, he spotted a crooked little shop squeezed between a gadget repair shop and a Turkish barber. A shop he was certain hadn't been there yesterday. The sign read, "Mortimer Grimble's Curios, Oddments and Questionable Relics. If you can't find it, it probably shouldn't be found." The window was crowded with the wildest assortments of strange objects he'd ever seen. He assumed it was a head shop. "Cool," James muttered. "Probably got grinders." He pushed open the door. Inside, the air smelled of dust, mothballs, and something that reminded him faintly of his gran's home-cooked rice pudding. Shelves sagged under the weight of jars containing things that blinked, relics that hummed, and taxidermy that looked like it wanted to lodge a complaint. Behind the counter stood Mortimer Grimble, polishing a teapot that looked like it was trying to bite him. James wandered the aisles, looking for rolling papers, a grinder, maybe a novelty bong shaped like a dragon. He found none of those, but he did find her. A little ceramic Toby mug, rosy-cheeked, smiling, with a tiny bun of grey hair and a floral shawl that looked exactly like Granny Maud. Exactly! Down to the faintly judgmental eyebrows that arched over eyes that twinkled with joy. The label read, "The Maudlin Mug. Keeps tea warm, sometimes hearts too." James felt something twist in his chest. He spotted a section of novelty bongs and hookers right beside it. How much for the mug?" Grimble, having successfully tamed the teapot, gave him the price. He checked his wallet. He had just enough money for either a truly magnificent bong shaped like a phoenix rising from a cloud of smoke, or this ridiculous, perfect, uncanny little mug. He swallowed. He picked up the mug and took it to the counter. Grimble smiled the smile of a man who'd been expecting something. "A wise choice," he said. "Bongs break, grandmothers endure." James bought the mug. As Grimble wrapped it in paper that rustled like something alive, he added, "Since you're clearly a man of herbal interests, you may appreciate this." He slid a small hand-drawn map across the counter. It was singed at the edges, annotated with warnings like, "Do not antagonize the small folk," and "Avoid stepping on the glowing ones." "What's this?" James asked. "A map," Grimble said, "to mushrooms that are, shall we say, out of this world?" James's eyes lit up. Grimble's eyes twinkled. The map led James to a clearing in the woods, a perfect ring of mushrooms glowing faintly like they'd been plugged into the mains. He knelt to pick one. A tiny voice shrieked, "Oi!" James yelped and fell backwards. 3 pixies, each about 6 inches tall, wearing waistcoats made of leaves and expressions made of fury, marched out from behind the toadstool. "That's our crop," barked the first. "Do you know how long they take to grow?" snapped the second. "Literal ages," squeaked the third. James held up his hands. "Sorry, I just wanted to make tea." "Tea?" the first pixie spat. "Humans always want tea. Why tea? Why not stew? Or a risotto?" The second pixie sighed dramatically. "Look, lad, we can't have you nicking our mushrooms, but we're not unreasonable." The third pixie produced a tiny burlap sack tied with a silver thread. "Here," she said. "Magic dust. Very potent, very rare, very sparkly. You leave our mushrooms alone. You take this instead." James blinked. "What does it do?" "Depends what you sprinkle it on," said the first pixie. "Depends who you are," said the second. "Depends what you need," said the third. James accepted the bag. The pixies vanished in a puff of indignation. Back home, James stared at the bag. He stared at the mug. He stared at the kettle. "Well," he said, "if the mushrooms get you high, the dust must be even better." He boiled water. He sprinkled a single grain into the mug. The water shimmered. The mug warmed in his hands. Steam curled upward like a beckoning finger. He drank, and the world unfolded. Colours sang, time softened. The walls breathed gently like they were dreaming. And the mug, Granny Maud's mug, spoke, not in words, not exactly, but in warmth, in memory, in the soft familiar cadence of her voice inside his mind. They talked for hours, days, a week. She gave him a rice pudding recipe. He walked around perfectly lucid, perfectly functional, just illuminated. He laughed again. He cried properly for the first time since she died. He forgave himself for not being able to save her. He forgave her for leaving. When the dust wore off, he felt clear, clearer than he had in years. He didn't want to waste himself anymore, not on smoke, not on numbness. He wanted to help. James had a friend who worked at the hospital, a nurse who always liked him despite his tendency to smell faintly of incense and weed. He told her he wanted to volunteer, not officially, quietly. There were people in pain, people afraid, people with only hours or days left. James visited them. He sprinkled a grain of dust into a cup of water, an open mouth, a bottle of medicine, a hand he held gently, and the dust did what it always did. It eased fear, it softened pain, it gave people clarity, peace, the chance to say goodbye without terror clouding their last moments. In a few rare cases, it sparked remission, miraculous reprieves that let families gather, speak, forgive. James used the entire bag, not on himself, on them. When the last grain of dust was gone, James hesitated only a moment before pulling out the map again. Maybe the pixies would have more. Maybe he could trade with them. He followed the directions exactly, past the bus stop, over the footbridge, down the lane behind the old allotments. But where the forest had been, he found only houses, neat gardens, wheelie bins, a cul-de-sac that had clearly existed for decades. No trees, no clearing, no ring of mushrooms, no trace of anything magical at all. Heart thudding, he hurried back to town and marched straight to Grimble's shop. Except there was no shop, just the gadget repair place, then the barber, nothing in between. No crooked doorway, no dusty windows, no Mortimer Grimble polishing a carnivorous teapot. James stood there for a long time, staring at the space where the impossible had once been. The magic was gone, but the clarity remained, and so did the maudlin mug, warm in his hands, steady as breath, reminding him of his gran and of the brief impossible days when a bag of sparkling dust brought small miracles into the world.